and I went on CNBC together a couple weeks ago talking about, the biggest challenge in the banking industry, right, is the too big to fail. And as an industry and as commitment to the communities, we need to make sure we're standing up and beginning to say something. Ben Bernanke in 2010 stood in front of Congress and said, the largest systemic risk is not FDIC insurance, it's not what just happened, it's too big to fail. That still is the largest systemic risk that exists in our country today. And when deposit insurance needs to change, if we ever want to change what the equality of and opportunities are for the society in which we all live, which our kids live, we need to make sure that we're providing equal opportunity for all of those in our communities. And that goes back to your point, Brian, that's why we connected, right? At the foundation of what we do as bankers, it's for the communities we serve. And if you evaporate, if I evaporate, if everyone that looks like us sitting in this room today evaporates, it's the US that really suffers from that. And that's something that we need to really look up to and say there's bigger things than just our individual balance sheets and what everyone else is sitting here talking about today.
It is. It's a question. Do we really believe that the diversified banking model we have today has made a difference? What do we want to be? Do we want to be like Canada, where we have literally just a handful of banks? Or do we want to have a diversified banking system that can actually connect to our communities and be responsive to the needs of those communities? And we have an unbelievable opportunity now. We have an administration that hates the biggest banks. They want to get it done. Just this morning, Secretary Bessent said, Dodd-Frank, the whole purpose of Dodd-Frank was to eliminate too big to fail. And it did just the opposite. It cemented too big to fail, and it made too small to survive. And here's the harsh reality. I respect Bill Demchak like crazy. You can say what you want about his personality. The guy is a smart banker. He came out and said the quiet part out loud to the Wall Street Journal, 2 weeks ago? Remember what he said? He said, the deposits are leaving the smallest banks. I believe we have to get to $1 trillion to stay relevant. How scary is that? And yet we hear nothing, crickets.
Well, you've been pretty outspoken, you both have, about FDIC insurance. Let's talk. I just want to hear your take on that.
I think it's broader than that. You look at the trade associations in which we belong to. Everyone here thinks the ABA is a good association, we should belong to that. You're belonging to the ICBA and you say that's a good association, right? They're all focused on their segment. Right? I think Brent and I sit here and say there's a bigger segment, which is the United States, and someone needs to focus on what that looks like. So the ABA comes out and says no to deposit insurance modernization. ICBA comes out and says no to deposit insurance modernization. Yet when we want to make regulatory changes when it comes to the amount of capital and everything else that comes along with the big banks, everyone's supposed to go in and push for them. At some point, we need to sit there and say, what are we doing as an industry? Right? And that's where we connect, and I think that's where, more broadly, we need to think who we are and what our real purpose is from an organization perspective. And Martin Luther King once said it wasn't the KKK that was the challenge, it was the silence of the middle class. Right? And it's the silence of banks that are going to be the downfall of what happens here in the United States.